welcome into a new episode of the Zero Technique Football Podcast, brought to you by backsportspage.com. And I am your host, Ryan Stern. Joined with me is the best in the biz, longtime friend of the show. He is the Gridiron Scholar, John Lobb. John, how's it going this evening, buddy?
It's going great. And you know, Ryan, the first year I bought my house 7 years ago, I came on with you. So I think this is our seventh year. I'm pretty sure this is our seventh year of talking about the NFL draft together.
And I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. So what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be breaking down the best landing spots for some of the top prospects in the draft at the skill positions, because John and I do have that fantasy background. So we're going to integrate a little bit of the draft with some fantasy football tonight. And then I do have a couple lightning round questions in terms of superlatives to run at you at the end of the show. John does great work with footballdiehards.com, now part of the NFL Draft Bible, which is now part of Sports Illustrated. He does such a great job breaking down these prospects with Matt Hicks on their series. So make sure you're following him there.
Thank you, my friend. And I think that's how you must have found me, because 8 years ago, I started on the Football Diehards doing my NFL draft rankings for fantasy football. And then you must have called me up right away the second year because I bought the house. And we've been talking ever since.
I had reached out to Emo.
Okay.
About who he would suggest come on to, because I had originally asked if he wanted to, and he said, I know somebody better that would be able to help you out, and that's how he put me in touch with you, and thankful for that ever since.
Thank you.
All right, so let's jump right into the quarterbacks, and I think we can glance by that top one, because obviously we know where Trevor Lawrence is going.
Everyone does.
All right, so you and I do differ a little bit on 2 through 4. So I know you have someone at number 2. Who is your number 2, and where do you think the best landing spot for him is?
Well, so. Okay, Jets are going to take Zach Wilson. I don't have any doubt about that. Unless this is really the greatest smoke screen since the Manhattan Project in 1944. I mean, everyone has Zach Wilson going to the Jets. And I'm actually, Ryan, I'm hoping for chaos. How cool would it be if the Jets took Justin Fields and no one expects it? But if I had a bet, you're putting money down, the odds stinks, I wouldn't bet on it. But it seems like every indication from the national media, the local media, it seems like the Jets are taking Zach Wilson. I've been a Zach Wilson guy this whole process. I've been on Zach Wilson because I started watching him early. In the year, I see an incredibly for any quarterback, but there is a massive ceiling. And I've made this comment before. I see John Elway and Russell Wilson in his upside game. Now, what are the odds of him hitting it? 15, 25%. I mean, that's any quarterback. We know the success rate is better, right? 50% if you're lucky in the first round. But I absolutely understand what NFL personnel directors, I understand what the NFL scouting combine believes in him. I see it. Now, it's interesting because there's a Twitterverse battle going on. You know, Twitterverse versus the entire national media. Who to take there. And I will say that I'm going to say this because I want to be honest. If you go to footballdiehards.com, you can see all my rankings. And Matt and I broke down both quarterbacks on the draft seminar. Fantasy upside, I have moved Fields ahead of Zach Wilson because of the rushing upside. Because I think he has that Kyler Murray kind of Josh Allen. He could get you 750 to 900 yards rushing. I don't think Zach Wilson can do that. Now, I think Zach Wilson's good. He has like 300 to 400 yards, 3 to 5 touchdowns. But when you're talking about fantasy, if you got 750 yards rushing, that's just so much. You can't overlook that upside. But from an NFL, there's two lenses I'm always wearing. I get why the NFL likes Zach Wilson. And this is not an anti-Justin Fields discussion. I love Justin Fields. Right. I mean, he's great. But I have to make a choice. So, I see what the NFL does.
So, I mean, if you look at it from a standard point scoring system, if you have Zach Wilson giving you 400 yards and you have Justin Fields giving you 800 yards, that's equivalent to an extra 1,000 passing yards.
It's crazy, right? And then if Justin Fields on the right team could have 8 to 10 rushing touchdowns. I mean, Ryan, just go back 1 year. No, I have a ton of minus years of Jalen Hurts. He was too cheap. And he was my number 4 ranked quarterback. And I was way ahead of him than most people. I love Jalen Hurts coming out. I also love this. It was fantasy upside. I thought his leadership skills were underrated. I thought people did not give him enough credit. But that's a different story. But from fantasy, it was all about his running ability. And I've already heard people now. He's in my top 10 fantasy this year. But I've heard people like Matthew Berry, who's the other great guy at ESPN? Why can't I think of his name right now? Mike. Oh my God, I can't.
Mike Clay.
Mike Clay. They both in the 10. But you know why, Ryan? It's his rushing. So I said within the last week, you know what? I have to make and be accountable for Justin Fields' rushing upside because it almost parallels Jalen Hurts. Now, ironically, I do think Justin Fields is a better future quarterback than Jalen Hurts. But why do we like Jalen Hurts? Is because he can run the football. Whatever. If he throws for 3,000 yards and rushes for 800, you're golden, right? I mean, that's within his realm of outcomes.
So we're assuming that Zach Wilson is going to land at number 2 with the Jets. So now we're talking about Justin Fields. Where do you think the best landing spot in terms of scheme fit in the NFL is for Justin Fields?
It's all Shanahan. Yeah. He might like Mac Jones, and I still think there's a 55% chance they're taking Jones. We'll have that discussion in a second. If you are looking for high upside, and you are looking for arm strength, and you are looking for command of the pocket, and what is so important, in my opinion, I've watched Shanahan since his father, Mike, was in Denver. They like to get the quarterbacks out on the boot. They like to get the quarterbacks out on the edge. They like their quarterbacks to be able to run a little bit. Now, he would be the most efficient runner that a Shanahan ever had, except for RG3. I forgot RG.
Yeah.
With Mike in Washington. So he fits everything that the Shanahan Kubiak looks for. I mean, I was thinking about this. Remember Matt Schaub in Houston, and that was a Kubiak offense. And if you don't remember, I'm old, folks. Kubiak was assistant coach under Shanahan. He was a backup to Elway in Denver. Basically, Kubiak took that offense, gave it a little bit of a Kubiak, twist. It's similar to what Shanahan's running right now in San Francisco. There's very, very similar. And Matt Schaub wasn't even in the same athletic gene as Justin Fields. And Jimmy Garoppolo isn't even in the same ballpark as Justin Fields. So if you take Justin Fields and you get him on one of those naked bootlegs with his ability to throw 50 yards down the field, dude, and get out on the edge, he's unbelievable. I mean, he's got everything in my book that Shanahan's offense would love. I mean, he's athletic like Elway. He's so much better than Matt Schaub as far as the ability to throw the football, get on the edge. I mean, look at what Matt Ryan did under Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta. And Matt Ryan's not mobile, but he got on the edge, he bootlegged, he used his receiver. Can you imagine George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel with Justin Fields there? I just get it. But I don't have any insight, but if you ask me, that's the best landing spot.
Yeah, I have the 49ers also. I know a lot of people are trying to put the comparison on Mac Jones to being a very similar type quarterback to a Kirk Cousins, to a Jimmy Garoppolo, and are just trying to force in that fit to being a Kyle Shanahan type quarterback. But I truly think that the athleticism would be absolutely devastating to add to that offense.
I mean, if you look where his father and where they had the most success, LA and RG3, as far as dynamic offenses, and what made them so dynamic, those two players, were their ability with their legs. And ironically, they had Elway at the end of his career where he wasn't a young man, Dan Reeves in the 80s, but he was still way above average for the late 90s, especially for a man over 35. But, I mean, if Justin Fields, and I think he's a better prospect than RG3. He's bigger than RG3. He's faster than RG3. The biggest problem looking back, RG3 played like a fullback, and he was in a Devonta Smith body. He took too many hits, and the body just could not take it. But he had as much skill at one time as any other guy. Then they scaled him back, and everything, just went downhill.
So I was looking at your rankings, and we have the same two at 4 and 5, just flip-flopped. And I know that you have your grading system, which has been your go-to for so many years. And I know, especially at the quarterback position, the amount of starts is huge in your grading.
It means a lot, unfortunately. Yeah.
Right. So and even though we haven't seen too much of either of these two guys, I think what we saw, especially with recency bias, I can see why Mac Jones is ahead of Trey Lance in your rankings. I actually have Lance up at number 3. I think that, especially in terms of potential, I actually think he may have the highest ceiling outside of Trevor Lawrence, because, I mean, you look at what he did in 2019. He accounts for 42 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, 1,100 rushing yards. Yes, it was the FCS, and you have to take that with a grain of salt. But what you don't want to see is a quarterback playing against that lower competition and not doing what Trey Lance did. I just don't think enough people are giving him credit for what he actually did and are holding him back a little bit for who he did it against. But I obviously, we saw Mac Jones do it at an incredible level at Alabama this year. His weapons are going to be drafted in the top 12, I'm assuming.
You could have that. I mean, they're ridiculous.
Tell me about the perfect landing spot for Mac Jones.
I would have said Carolina, but then they went out and they addressed the quarterback position. So I'm not going to say that. I do think Pittsburgh would be the perfect place, but I don't think he'll fall. So I'm going to go with the boring, the one that everyone's identifying, the New England Patriots. It seems that the Patriots must get a quarterback. They must. Denver's also in this position where they have to get a quarterback, in my opinion. So I think you have two teams playing chicken here. Will one outlast the other, or will they jump up to get their guy? This is, to me, one of the most fascinating, because Denver's in the drive. There's a lap to go, and they're about a car ahead. They have a car length lead because they're at 9 and New England's at 15. And you got to think if no trades occur, let's say no trades, one of those 5 should fall to Denver.
Yeah.
But you're banking on Atlanta and New England not jumping you, right? So you have to, 2 things have to occur. Atlanta doesn't get a franchise quarterback here, and New England doesn't jump ahead of you with Miami. Well, it won't be Miami. I don't think Miami would. No. Carolina won't trade down, right? Or Detroit. So can you bank on that? I don't think you can. You have to be proactive.
Yep.
I think now it also depends on how you rank the board. What if you don't have Mac Jones as high? You just said, I'm assuming you have him at number 5, right?
Yeah.
What if he's your number 5? Are you paying that much to move up? I don't think you should, right? But if Trey Lance is your guy at 3 or 2, and he's there at Atlanta's pick, do you move up, right? So I think there's a lot of kind of who's going to make the bold move here. I would love to see Trey Lance in Denver or New England. I'm going to say one thing. You kind of mentioned it. He's only played 17 games, and you're right. Games played to me is very important. That's why I was very low on Trubisky. I was way lower on Trubisky than the consensus. And we had the same problem with Mark Sanchez coming out and Sam Darnold.
Dwayne Haskins as well.
Dwayne Haskins. You get into this range of start in one season, my friend, it is a massive red flag. And I can't believe, and I mean, he also played at the FCS. And everyone just is almost ignoring what history has told us. History has told us Dwayne Haskins, Sam Darnold, Mitch Trubisky, and Mark Sanchez all failed in this scenario. Well, we don't know yet about Darnold. I kind of like Darnold still, but it's taken him a long time to ramp up, right? So I see, then he's at the FCS level. I'll say this in honesty, and I like him a lot. So don't, we're choosing between great options here. I see Randall Cunningham and Cam Newton in Trey Lance. That's the ceiling.
Yep.
But the floor, Ryan, is so great with this prospect because of the limited competition level, because of the limited games played, and he even played last year. He had a whole year off. Basically, he played one game. It was an exhibition against Central Arkansas. So are you going to bank your franchise? If you're a general manager, are you going to put all of your eggs into that bucket? The thing about Jones, Alabama pedigree, national championship, SEC competition, 24 games. And then Matt, no one's talking about this. Mac Jones put up better numbers than Joe Burrow. Put Mac Jones' numbers from last year with Joe Burrow's. Ladies and gentlemen, his numbers statistically are a little better than Joe Burrow. I mean, I'm looking for a 155 passing efficiency. Matt Jones had 197.6. That's crazy, dude. And I heard me talk about this. He had a 56-7 touchdown to interception ratio. 56-7. And then he completed 74% of his passes. I mean, the film is good, very good, but I do understand he had playmakers that were just ridiculous. And no one ever talks about this. Steve Sarkisian is one of the best play callers in college football. No one talks about it. If you watch the last 5 games of Alabama's season, I think he called a nearly perfect offensive game plan in every time I saw him coach. I mean, I think Texas is in for a boatload season. So that's why I have Mac Jones there. And he doesn't have the Trey Lance ceiling. But Ryan, he has such a Kirk Cousins floor.
Yeah.
Like I see an 8-year career, 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns with like 8 interceptions. I mean, that seems like what he's going to do. That's why I have him there.
Yeah, I sort of put him. One of the comps that I liked was Chad Pennington. Now, I do think he does have a little bit of a better arm than Chad Pennington.
I think so too.
But I do see the same timing and anticipation that we saw with Chad Pennington coming out of Marshall.
Chad Pennington was an underrated NFL quarterback.
Never going to be in the top half, but he's not going to be one that's going to be the reason you're going to lose.
No, he should not cost you victories. And I think that's what Shanahan and Lynch liked when they first started the process.
Right.
He's not going to cost us. And they think Jimmy cost them.
So I'm the same as you. I did have my favorite landing spot with Mac Jones as the Patriots. Now, for Trey Lance, I do think that he needs to go into a situation where he is not asked to play right away. I know you said Denver, and obviously Denver has Drew Lock. I'm not sold on. Do not give me Drew Lock. Drew Lock is not long for this league as a starter. But I did pick the Atlanta Falcons because the Atlanta Falcons are tied in terms of contract to Matt Ryan for another 2 years.
Yep.
I think that you get somebody with as much experience, as much production, and as much winning that under his belt. You put Trey Lance in the same quarterback room as Matt Ryan. I think that can only help him.
Oh, and the key to me, like why I don't want Denver to have Trey Lance, I don't think they can start him right away. I think that is a disaster waiting to happen. Look at Patrick Mahomes, how much he benefited. And I've said this before. Look at how much Carson Palmer. He sat behind John Kitna in Cincinnati. There is nothing wrong with taking a young prospect who needs time to develop. And I know he's got athleticism that just is unbelievable on the film. But, man, those windows sometimes. Was there a cornerback in the framework of Trey Lance on his throws? Was there a linebacker who's as big and fast as him?
Right.
I mean, there are times when we were breaking down the film, my friend Matt and I mean, there's not a linebacker on the defensive side as big as him. Like, it's now in the NFL, every linebacker is going to be bigger, faster, and stronger than Trey Lance. So those windows are going to close, and forget the safety. He never saw a safety like he's going to see in the NFL, my friend. Come on, man. I mean, there was not a safety in the screen sometimes in the competition. There's no Jamal Anderson coming in for a weak side on the blitz. Or, there's no Troy Polamalu covering 3/4 of the field on a deep side, on a deep post pattern. Please. I mean, or Landon Collins, like there's just none of that. So that's going to take time for him to learn.
All right, let's shift over to the running backs. And this is a really interesting class because you don't have that elite guy. And most people do have Najee Harris at the top. And I think we're starting to see that NFL teams are starting to get it, that you don't need to draft a running back in the top half of the first round in order for that to get success at that position. That being said, I do think that there is a clear separation between the top three from the rest of this class. I do have Najee Harris at the top. My best fit for him is the Miami Dolphins. I think that they're the fact that they've shown that they're willing to give one running back the bulk of the work. We saw what Myles Gaskin was able to do when he was healthy and on the field. We saw what Salvon Ahmed was even able to do when and Najee Harris is so much better than either of those two players.
Oh my God.
If Najee Harris is given the same workload that those two got when they were the guy, Najee Harris, I mean, he's the locked and loaded 101 in rookie drafts, right?
Oh, if he ends up in Miami or Pittsburgh, he's locked and loaded. Now, this is interesting, Ryan, because I've thought a lot about Miami. And I'm very impressed with their front office and their coaching staff is doing. You just mentioned it. They got a stud out of Myles Gaskin. I know he's not like a Pro Bowl. What I mean, fantasy, he was productive.
Absolutely.
And for what they got out of him, and I loved him at University of Washington. I had him on my college fantasy teams for a long time, and he never achieved his ceiling with the Huskies. And he was, I had him like most on lower range of a draft prospect. Miami did wonderful with him. But what that tells me, why I tell this story, their analytics department is going to tell you the running back isn't worth pick 18.
Right.
Ryan, they're going to tell them that. What their analytics department is going to tell them is pick 36 is where we should target a running back. And we really don't care who it is. I mean, I think that's what their analytics department is going to tell them. You might like Javonta Williams. You might like Najee Harris. But guess what? It doesn't matter. Whichever one we get at number 3, if they're there in the 36, plug them in. I really think because they're too smart, Miami, to say they're going to use a running back on pick 18 when there's going to be defensive players, offensive linemen. They're going to be legitimate because these quarterbacks is pushing talent way down the board, my friend.
Yep.
I mean, you are talking to pick 18. You're really looking at a top 12 non-quarterback player, right? I mean, that's incredible. And we have Kyle Pitts, who is not normally a tight end in the top, right? So you're going to look at the defensive side of the football. I'm going to a 5-star buffet, man, with steak, shrimp, and caviar. So are you going to take I just don't see it. It doesn't make sense. The analytical time. So that's why I think they're going to go in the second round.
I absolutely agree with you, and I don't think that they're going to take Najee Harris. I just thought that was the perfect landing spot.
It would be, and but I think whoever falls now, Now Miami's going to have to roll the dice. Is Etienne, Javonta Williams, or Najee available at 36? Now you're getting dicey. That's the question.
Yep. And one team that I know you had mentioned with Najee was the Steelers. And I think, obviously, the role of full-time running back is going to be there for the Steelers. We saw them struggle a lot at times last year running the ball. And their offensive line is going to be much worse this coming year than it was last year. So it would worry me whoever actually goes to Pittsburgh, because I think the opportunity is going to be a little bit flawed in my eyes. Oh, did we lose John?
There we go.
All right.
All right, sorry. Sometimes. So I do think they need an offensive lineman. So then the question, if I look, they don't have another pick until 55. Now, I don't know how the Steelers' board is. So to me, it would have to be, does Pittsburgh think there's an offensive lineman or a running back available at 55, Ryan? And I have a feeling the offensive lineman looks more likely to have value at 55 because there's interior guards, there's a couple centers, and the tackles are deep. So you could probably get an offensive line starter. You might not get the tackles. I get it. They're not going to get one of the premier left or right tackles, at 55. But they could get a darn good interior offensive lineman there, which will help them upgrade. I don't think any of the big three running backs will be there at 55 whatsoever. So that's why I switched to a running back. But I agree, it's scary because their offensive line right now is bad. There's no question about that.
Number 2 on my board is Travis Etienne. My perfect fit for him, and I know this may be way too early, but I've heard that this team may be willing to trade back. Right now they're sitting at 16, and that's the Arizona Cardinals. To put Travis Etienne in a Cliff Kingsbury offensive system when they have DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray, AJ Green, I mean that's a scary thought.
No, it's a great landing spot. I absolutely agree. But, man, they got a lot of problems, too, on the defensive side of the football.
Especially in the secondary.
I'll tell you my dream. Buffalo, baby.
Yeah.
Give me Buffalo. Oh, because, see, at the end of the first round, like Kansas City last year with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Buffalo with a ready-made roster. Their roster is solid, right? There's no glaring weakness, but you do notice there's one weakness. The running back is a major problem. And despite how incredible Josh Allen's been, I saw he has the second most rushing touchdowns since he came into the league. Only Nick Chubb has more than him among running back quarterbacks. Eventually, Ryan, you keep rolling the dice near the goal line like that, your quarterback's going to get hurt. Separated shoulder, lacerated kidney. Something's going to happen and he's been very good avoiding those, the big hits, and he's great. But how long can you continue, my friend, to keep doing that with your franchise quarterback? You've got to get a running back who can help you in the red zone. And, just be an upgrade from Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. So I think the Bills have tried back-to-back to find value in the backfield. Has not worked out. They don't have glaring need other than running back. I want one so bad in Buffalo, my friend.
So I actually had Javonta Williams as the landing spot of the Buffalo Bills. I'm much higher on Javonta Williams than a lot of people. And I know Javonta is the consensus RB3, but I think most people have a pretty big teardrop between Travis Etienne and Javonta Williams. I think there is a much bigger drop from 3 to 4 than there is from 2 to 3.
I have Javonta too. I've had him at number 2 since mid-December, dude. He's too big, too fast, too good. He's too good between the tackles. Yeah. The thing is, I think Javonta Williams is a 50-catch, 3-down, 1,000-yard rusher first day he gets into training camp. I don't know if he'll ever do 1,500 yards from the ground. That you're talking a special back. But can he get 1,000 yards, 50 catches for 450 yards? Without question in my book. Plus, he would look good with Josh Allen. Yeah. The fit works because North Carolina, there are elements of the North Carolina offense that Buffalo runs. Yep. He would look really good there in Buffalo.
So both of us actually have the same number 4, and it's Trey Sermon out of Ohio State. And I think too many people are looking at, okay, he has 3 big games in his career. Where is the rest of the production? And I'm looking at did he deal with a couple injuries? Yeah. But he also dealt with a really bad situation at Oklahoma. There just was not a fit between him and whether it be the coaching staff, whether it be the scheme. It just didn't work. And then he goes to Ohio State, and he has to deal with Master Teague also being in the backfield. I love what Trey Sermon, and you don't do what you did to a really good Northwestern defense unless you have that special something. And so I have Trey Sermon. I like the fit with the Atlanta Falcons.
So Sermon, to give you an idea, sorry I lost you. There's something, it's my system or something. Here's what he had to deal with at Oklahoma. Rodney Anderson, and remember the Bengals had him and we thought him, but the injuries just took their toll. If you know Oklahoma, Abdul Adams was like a highly recruited prospect, just never did anything for Oklahoma. Kennedy Brooks and Ramondre Stevenson showed up. Then you look and think about the quarterbacks he played with. Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts. What did they all have in common? They could run the football near the goal line, right? So it took me a while to overcome his lack of production to really I looked more into the Oklahoma. I actually went back, Ryan, and watched some film from his freshman year, and I'll tell you what game moved him up. I rewatched Oklahoma versus Georgia with Jake Fromm. Trey Sermon was a true freshman that year. Ryan, he was awesome in that game. I remembered why I had him the next year. He was like in my top 5 college fantasy football running backs. He was so good in that game against the Georgia Bulldogs. And that defense was loaded. Yeah. And Trey Sermon was packing a punch. But it just, he got some injuries. The depth chart, it just didn't work out. So once I started rewatching him, and then the final thing that put him at number 4, he ran a 6.83 in the 3-cone drill. I don't care about the long speed. It is what it is.
Right.
But when you have a 6.83 and a 4.28, the man between the tackles is quick. Now, so it's hard because, like I've learned over the years, you can be really good between the tackles on film. But if you go out and blast a 7.44 in the 3-cone drill, it don't matter. But when you like them between the tackles, and then a man at 213 pounds is running a 6.83, I'm like, wait a second. Uh-oh. What I saw, the athletic ability matches, and I don't care in the running back about the 40, as long as they're not running a 4.7. Remember Elijah Holyfield, that running back from Georgia? Right, right, everyone loved the film, but he ran like a 4.7. You're like, okay, that guy. So as long, he ran a respectable 4.57. That's not a bad time. It's just not lightning quick, but I don't care. Give me 10-yard runs all day long. So I agree with you. And I wonder if the Steelers will like Trey Sermon. You see that they could take that risk at 55. However, what if the Jets like him? That's an interesting pick too, because I have him at 4, but he's all over the board. Like, we've seen him at 1. Matt Waldman has him at 1. And then I've seen people who have him at like 8 or 9. Yep. So I have him at 4. I think he's I have a second round grade. Let's see where he ends up. But I think he's an NFL back, no question.
All right, final segment. We're going to switch over to the wide receivers. This one I think may be a little bit easier, at least in terms of the my top 2. My number 2 is much further down on your list than I have. Your number 2 is my number 3. So we're both a little bit off of Devonta Smith. We're not as high as others are, but we both have Jamar Chase out of LSU at number 1, and LSU. That's all you have to say. Perfect landing spot is the Cincinnati Bengals.
Everything works with him. The film is good, the athletic ability, the production, the breakout age, the size. I I guess I heard someone today say he doesn't get the separation he wants. I'm like, man, you be nitpicking. I mean, like there's just a point, like, it's like picking apart Trevor Lawrence. Like, I get it. You have to find something he doesn't do well. But like Jamar Chase is as good as they get, man, at wide receiver as a prospect.
You know who else doesn't get great separation? Kenny Golladay. And tell me if he's been okay in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, you can win so many ways in the NFL, right? And he wins in almost every other manner.
Right.
So maybe he doesn't get the quick separation on the quick slant. All right, we don't have him run the quick slant, right? I mean, there's other ways to get the ball into his hands.
Right.
So I love him. I wish he goes to Miami. I think it's Detroit because I think Miami goes offensive line, but that's another podcast. I wish he goes to Miami, but I have him going to Detroit. And the problem is Detroit is a tough spot for fantasy. I'm hoping the franchise turns around, but right now, I'm not looking at a franchise that I'm investing a lot of fantasy assets in right now, but I don't see how Detroit can pass him. If he's on the board at 7, how can unless they get the deal for the quarterback? I get it. New England gives you a boatload, you just do it. Or Denver gives you something, you do it. Because you might get Chase at number 9 if Denver trades up with you. But I'm not sure if I love that landing spot. It's okay with Jared Goff, but I just worry about the franchise, right? I mean, you're just like, Detroit.
Right.
Right.
All right. So number 2, like I said, your number 2 is my number 3. Rashad Bateman. Tell me why you are so high on Rashad Bateman.
Ryan, I've loved his film since 2019. And I've said this if anyone's listened to me. I started out in Tyler Johnson in 2019. And I'm watching Tanner Morgan. If you don't know, Minnesota Golden Gophers had like their best year in 2 decades. The offense was flying. So I'm originally starting to take notes with Tyler Johnson. I'm watching this Tanner Morgan, this kid who's finally getting an opportunity. And all I see, Ryan, is this kid, Rashad Bateman. I'm like, who's Rashad Bateman? And the more I watched, the more I liked him. Dude, he can play X. He can play Z. He can play slot. It's a fascinating when you see like where the throws were. Because when I was charting, wow, he's in the slot here. He's in the Z. Because if you watch the 2019 and 20, he's all over the field. That's PJ Fleck. I like PJ Fleck a lot. You want to learn how to coordinate a passing game? Watch some PJ Fleck film, friends. He's really good. So then when I saw one of these charts of where his targets were, it's interesting. He has a lot of short targets, but he also had the highest average depth per target. Well, what does that tell you? He's diverse. He's running short slants, quick pitches. He's getting the ball quickly, boom. But also, if you start cheating, if the quarterback or him see those safeties come up, Bateman's going deep on you, man. I mean, it was just everything. And then the numbers lined up, man. He averaged 16.3 yards a reception. Now, I know he wasn't as big as we thought. I don't know what happened. He was 210 on the webpage. He ended up at 190, but he has COVID. So but 190 isn't like, oh my God, red flag small, because he plays bigger than that. And then the athletic numbers, 4.34, 3.9, 4.39. Come on, man. I know they're a little juice. I get the pro day. I get all that. I can compare the numbers with everyone else in the draft class. I can only look at the pro day numbers that I have in front of me. His numbers are solid, man. So even if he's a 4.44, come on, he's 6 foot, 190, probably going to play at 195, 198 once he, the weight loss and all that. I just love the film. He's diverse. You can plug and play him, I think, day one. He's my number 2. I love him, man.
So I actually have my perfect landing spot for him, and at where he's not going to have to travel very far. I think it's the Minnesota Vikings, because we're Adam Thielen's in the last year of real control. I think that this is a perfect time for them to. I know they invested in a wide receiver last year with Justin Jefferson, but I think a perfect comp for someone like a Rashad Bateman is Adam Thielen.
Oh, look it. That's a great comp, Ryan. He's in that realm. I actually would think he's more diverse. I think you're about the number of catches and all that. I actually think he's a more diverse because Thielen's kind of, he was a slot for a long time. They moved him out to the Z. It really was great that they got Jefferson because he fulfilled where Thielen could play. I actually think Bateman, when he hits his peak, can play the X. My dream spot would be the Chargers, but they're not going to do it. I understand why they want it. My second favorite spot, I would love him in Tennessee. People think it's going to be Elijah. Man, you put him and A.J. Brown, dude, because we all know A.J. Brown's going to have the alpha defender on him. You got to dictate of safety, or A.J. Brown takes it to the house from 75 yards. Well, what does that leave Bateman, man? He's sitting there one-on-one all day. I would love him in Tennessee. So and I know he'll never go to the Chargers.
We saw Corey Davis had been a bust throughout his first 4 years, and we see the breakout year for A.J. Brown, and it just happened to coincide with Corey Davis breaking out. And I think having A.J. Brown there is the main reason behind why we saw Corey Davis have the success that he had last year. And I think Rashad Bateman's a better wide receiver than Corey Davis.
It's interesting. I love Corey Davis coming out, but since we've seen Corey Davis, I think Bateman now has a higher ceiling than Corey Davis. I think we've seen the best of Corey Davis. I don't see him being the better than he was last year because of A.J. Brown. I mean, that's really because every defense has to deal with A.J. Brown, man. It's a real problem over there.
All right, so we'll talk a little bit about Devonta Smith, and then we'll figure out why you hate Jalen Waddle so much. So Devonta Smith, obviously we saw an absolute record-setting season last year. To me, the reason why he had the record-setting season is because there was no Jalen Waddle. But
part of it. That's a fair statement.
We saw the height and the weight come in from the Indy rechecks this past weekend. And I think we were all expecting around 6'1", 170. That's what I know. I was on the media Zoom with Alabama right before their pro day had begun, and he led us to believe that he was 6'1", 170, and we find out he's 6'02", 166 today. I know we were conversating earlier today about Devonta Smith and his size. How much does that worry you?
Ryan, he might be the biggest faller.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at the draft board, and if Miami goes offensive lineman, so Miami and Detroit are the two obvious, right? They need the wide receiver, but there's also value in those offensive linemen, right? Cincinnati's there. But then you look, Carolina, Denver, Dallas, the Giants. Are the Eagles really going to draft a 166-pound wide receiver in the first round after all the disaster picks at wide receiver? Chargers, are they, you begin to look and you say, whoa, who's the next team? I mean, Arizona, maybe you mentioned it, but that seems like not the best spot. Las Vegas just invested. I mean, Miami might get Devonta Smith at 18. I mean, because you really look at the board, Ryan, there's not a lot of teams that need a receiver once you get out of Detroit and Miami. And then I really would question, there's no way New England takes them. The Raiders just got Henry Ruggs and Braylon Edwards. There's, And New England got Nelson Aguilar. The Vikings just spent on Justin Jefferson. You look and you're like, whoa. He might be the faller here. Watch Devonta Smith end up in Chicago. Like, just a disaster situation.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I mean, then he's going to have to try and replace Allen Robinson next year.
I mean, then Washington just signed another wide receiver, right? So you begin to look at the board and you begin to say, wow, is it possible that he begins to fall here? Because I'm telling you, I can't be the only guy, and I get it, the argument over BMI. I get this. And I will say this, I have not seen as good of a route runner as Devonta Smith. Only Jerry Jeudy, Scott, which I've always watched. You know, when I have records and I publish stuff, so it's on record. He's amazing. But Ryan, he's 166.
Yeah.
This is still a game of physical will, intimidation. I mean, look, I know he doesn't get hit, but those are college safeties, man. You know, there's a linebacker, when they see that crossing pattern with Devonta Smith, dude, you know someone's going to crack him. They just don't do that in the SEC. And that's, you know, he's not going to get that release, just a free run across the 4 yards. Someone's going to smack him there, or they're going to drop a JPP and he's just going to put out his arm. I mean, like, you know, there's just no way he's getting that 4-yard crossing. He's just not getting that. They're not going to let him get that. So I just say, man, how much punishment can that body take, especially when the NFL says, son, you're not going to get that pass? Like, look, will he be good? Yes, I get it. He's still a first. But what? I mean, is he really the ceiling there? Can he carry your offense? I don't think he can.
All right, so why do you hate Jalen Waddle? I
don't hate Jalen Waddle.
Why is he at number 5? Because I have him at number 2, and I think the distance between Jalen Waddle and number 3 is much larger than the distance between Jalen Waddle and Jamar Chase. I think that he's much closer to 1 than he is to 3. Is he a little undersized? Yes, but I think he plays more physical than most of the players with his breakaway speed. He can be Tyreek Hill to me.
I get the ceiling. I'll say there's something. There's no Tyreek, but I get it. Everyone says it. I get it. Here's the thing that bothers me about Waddle. When you get injured in college, and I read this offseason, at wide receiver, you're more likely not to be healthy in the NFL. It becomes a pretty obvious correlation that injured college receivers are injured in the NFL. Waddle's had some injuries. He played his best football kind of like Rondell Moore. Now, he was gymming. I think he played 4 games this year, right? He was hot as smoke. And that's what you alluded to with Devonta Smith. You know, he got hurt and basically Waddle didn't play again. But I look at only 106 career receptions, which is a component of not staying on the field. Team aerial dominator. He never had more than 17% of the Alabama passing yards. That was his best season. That's pretty low. So I say to myself, has he ever shown me he can play on the field as the alpha male for 16 games? I don't have that in my database that says he can do it. Does not mean he can't do it. I'm not saying that. But if you look statistically, his odds of doing that now are much smaller than someone who's played consistently and been healthy and is entering the league with the much bigger. That's why I like reception total. Now, I don't think there's a big, if you're in a system you get 225 receptions like Corey Davis at Western Michigan. Well, that's probably worth 150 at Alabama. So I understand scheme context matter. But I do like to see he's at Alabama where receivers get targets. And targets are a component of team context, your teammates, and the scheme. And those are a little concerning to me with Jalen Waddle. I think and I get the ceiling. Everyone's looking up at the stars, and it's beautiful, dude. It is a North Star. When you see him on those passes, 70 yards, I mean, it's up there. But can he stay on the field? I don't know. I wonder about that. So that's why I have him at 5.
So my biggest issue with, yes, does he have those dominator scores? No. He's at Alabama where they literally can pick you here. And they put their tails between their legs and they do it. They go to Alabama. We've seen how many first-round draft picks among pass catchers over the past couple of years that he's had to fight for these targets with. So I give him a little bit of a pass there. I look at the 4 games that he played with Devonta Smith before he got hurt, and Devonta Smith had 19 more catches than Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle still had 74 more yards than Devonta Smith in those 4 games. Is he going to be the PPR the 150 target guy? No, that's not going to be his game. But he's going to. A lot of people are putting the comp with Henry Ruggs because they do play a similar game. I think he's more physical than Ruggs, and I think his ability to win the 50-50 balls at being 5'11" is unbelievable.
No, he has alpha male traits.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have the size. I mean, if he was 6'1", 210, I mean, I might have him over Jamar Chase. And he had the same speed, which we actually don't have a time, but we know he's fast. But the point is he's 5'10", 182, but he plays a lot bigger. There's no question about that. I mean, look, I have him in the top 5. I believe I have a first-round grade. But I do think there's a floor that bothers me. Can he ever be Kenny Galladay? Can he be, the guy who's going to dominate targets deep down the field? And I just don't see that as a consistent part of his game. I mean, look, there's another guy. Can you imagine him next to A.J. Brown, dude? Like, that'd be the perfect scenario. Or what if he went to Seattle with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, where when all of a sudden he's a slot receiver, forget about it, right? Like, I think he's a perfect component in a good offense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're going to wrap this up with a little bit of superlative lightning round question. So the first name that comes to mind. First, we're going to be in the quarterbacks. Best arm in the class.
I think it's Trevor Lawrence. People will disagree with me, but I think it's Lawrence.
Best touch.
I'm going to go Mac Jones. I think he's much more accurate than people give him credit for.
All right, not the best, but your favorite quarterback outside of the top 5.
Oh, that's hard. Oh my God. Sam Ellinger, but I don't like any of them. But I'm going to go Sam Ellinger. He's a little Tim Tebow, but that is what it is.
All right, running backs. Best pure runner.
I think it's Travis Etienne. Pure runner, yes.
Best pass catcher.
Oh, Najee Harris. I think he's by far the best. He runs the best routes. He's actually a receiver who plays running back. He's unbelievable.
Favorite day 3 running back?
Khalil Herbert, if he lasts to day 3. I think he's going to be on the board. I like Khalil Herbert a lot.
All right. Finally, the wide receivers. You said obviously about Devonta Smith, so let's leave Devonta Smith out of this. Best route runner.
Oh, Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore. I have him at number 4. We didn't mention him. I'm in love with Elijah Moore. I like him a ton.
Best hands.
Elijah Moore, 83% catch rate. And anyone who watched Matt Carroll, he's good, but Matt Carroll ain't no Mac Jones or Tua Tagovailoa throwing the football. I mean, Elijah Moore's sticky hands, man. He's good.
And finally, same thing, favorite day 3 wide receiver.
Nico, well, no, I don't know. Oh, wow, will Dwayne Eskridge. See, I don't know if Nico Collins and Dwayne Eskridge. So let's say they don't get to day 3. I have to go further down my board. Oh, Des Fitzpatrick. I think he's a sneaky guy out of Louisville. He will be day 3. Yeah, I don't know if Nico will make day 3. So I think if you're looking for size you want an X receiver who's going to be cheap in I think it's Des Fitzpatrick. Very underrated. I actually was studying Tutu Atwell, and Fitzpatrick is better than him, I think. I do.
And I mean, this draft is filled with Z's and slots. There are very few pure X's in this draft. I think Terrace Marshall and Nico Collins out of Michigan are
Williams and Des Fitzpatrick. I think there's 4.
Yep. John, he's
6'2", 208.
John, this is why you're the best. Thank you so much. I mean, this is what now? I think you said 7 years now of us talking draft, and I really thank you so much for all the time that you've given us over the years. Just give a shout out to where everyone can find your stuff.
Sure. Follow me on Twitter at GridironSkull91. Couldn't afford the A and the R, so I'm GridironSkull91. You can find my written profiles for the 8th year up on FootballDiehards.com. And you can find our video series, The Draft Seminar, with Matt Hicks and myself. Go to the Rookie Big Board channel on YouTube. And we have 50 players, and each player is between 9 and 11 minutes. We break down the film, look at the numbers, and give you some background info on each player.
And I can tell you I've watched at least 30 of them. So
thank you.
I absolutely love what you guys are doing. Again, John, thank you so much. It's going to wrap it up for this week. And then it's on to draft week. I cannot believe we are here already. The days are long, but the years are short.
And my friend, I was thinking back today. How different are we today? 1 year ago, in the pandemic, we were doing virtual draft. I mean, wow, what a difference in 1 year.
Yeah, and yesterday was my first day out. The entire family ended up testing positive. My 9 and 5 year old daughters. At their dance school, there was an outbreak. They brought it home. My wife, the two of them tested positive first, then my wife, then my 8-month-old son, and then me. So, yeah, it was.
Did you have the vaccine?
Yeah, my wife and I are vaccinated, and we had mild symptoms at worst. So, knock on wood. Thank goodness that we are vaccinated, and I'm choosing to believe that's why we were, I guess, grateful enough for not having it as worse as so many people have had it.
Oh wow! Now, do you have both of them or just one?
Yeah, we both of us were fully vaccinated as of February 26th.
Oh, good. So congratulations. I'm glad. That's good news.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I got my second a week ago.
Love it. All right. Again, thank you for tuning in, John. Again, thanks for all the time, and we'll talk soon.